Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, so I wanted to do another video, and it's going to be following on from a similar theme from what we talked about last time. I just wanted to also remind remind us all about why I started doing these videos, which was the idea of imagine this message is coming from the future, and it's to give guidance and advice to my kids, my nephews, nieces, and of course anyone else who's hearing the message. And it'll be about trying to give them, trying to tell them about the Deen, and the priorities to help them in their life. So as I say, this is another video talking about this question of the meaning of life, and then from there it will move on to other connected topics and themes. And about this question, the meaning of life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explicitly tells us what that is in surah al-Dhariyat, in surah 51 verse 56. He says,
وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون.
and I, Allah, created not the jinn and mankind except that they should worship me alone. You see how direct and kind of crystal clear that is. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the Arabic word illah, which clearly emphasizes what? Well, it clearly emphasizes that he created not only the jinn and the mankind except, right? So the word not and except emphasizes that, like, if you wait, it's kind of to not exaggerate, but to emphasize the priority that this is the key reason, and then the reason is what follows, that they should worship me alone. And the phrase "abuduni," which means worship me, is emphasized because of the illah before. Okay, so and what that does is it links to a key theme in the Deen, in Islam, which is revolves around Tawheed. And if I ask people, what does Tawheed mean? Often the answer is, oh, it's about the oneness of Allah. And the thing is, this is a reasonable response, but it kind of misses something if you just say oneness of Allah, because really, when we know that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, then we are supposed to be thinking that this is incumbent on us to respond in some way, and that is to single him out for worship alone. So a better translation of Tawheed would be to say that because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, we ought to, or we must, single him out for worship alone. Okay, and now this word a'budu is connected to the word ibadah. When you say the word ibadah, this is the idea of worship. And also Abdullah, when you say Abdullah, we have the word abd. This means slave. So Abdullah means slave of Allah. And what is being implied here is that worship and enslaving yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is important, actually. It's very key, because he is the creator and we are the creation, and everything else submits to him. Okay, and we also should submit to him alone. And the meaning of Islam, for example, is submission and surrendering to him alone. And from there we will get salam. That is to say, we will get peace. Okay, from that fitting in or aligning with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants of us. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to sort of shifting the topic a little to this idea of what do we think about when we say worship. And often we think it's about praying. Worship equals praying. The problem is here is that the word worship sounds a little bit archaic, and archaic is a fancy word to mean old. Sounds very old. Um, so actually, if you want to use other synonyms for worship, a better word would be devotion. Um, so the question is, what are we devoted to? Or another word would be love. Who do we love? Now, this comes from this idea of, the pagan Arabs. This is before Islam. They when they use the phrase "abdu," um, and it would be in connection to the idea of paving a road or paving a way to the one that they love, and obviously they would like have love poetry to human beings and these things. So, but what it gives you is a clue about what we mean by a'budu, to worship, is it is the close connection to love. So when Islam came, it used that word solely about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's how now it comes to mean worship. Therefore, love is worship, and this is connected to our action. Okay, we should begin in the heart. That's why love we consider it beginning in the heart, and worship is in the heart. So if there is no action, you could argue that there is no heart action, meaning your heart is not acting. And that is a sign that there is no love. And that explains why there is no worship. Okay? And you can reverse it, which is to say, if there is action, right, you're working your hardest to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's because that there is heart action, that is to say, your heart is acting, because there is love. And therefore you are worshipping, you see? So the question is, who do we love? Or who or what do we devote ourselves to? And what are we worshipping? So these are the things that we want to really focus. Okay, so I think that's my preliminary. So my question now is, how do you know what you are devoted to? Like, what is the signs? So things to look out for is, what are you obsessed with? What is it that you find yourself thinking about like all of the time? What do you gravitate towards? So again, the question is, what does devotion look like? How do you know what you are worshipping? So some people, they love celebrities, for example, right? Think about social media and all these influencers. The people kind of look up to them as maybe role models, etc., and they kind of want to be like them. Other people, they are focused a lot on certain games. All they do is playing games, whether it's, I don't know, Pokemon, Minecraft, football. Now, when you think about football, you have people copying haircuts, um, and also fashions, following the way people look. It might be all about collecting stuff. There's others who focus on film, or obsessing about music and following certain trends. And then when you're older, it can become about your job and a career and earning money, trying to make as much money as possible. Alternatively, it could be about always going out, socializing and partying. Um, And then if we go back to the social media idea, the idea of trying to collect as many likes and subscribes, and then this connected to the idea of fame, trying to get fame. So are we sort of worshipping the opinions of the people? So these are the things that I really need you guys to think about. And it's not really me, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this deen of ours is getting us to reflect on this idea of, are we worshipping our desires? This idea that, no, I want to do what I want to do, but is this the right thing to do? And a perfect case study would be to look at when, for example, salah comes in, or something fard. That is to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered us to do something or not to do something. Then what? So now, if Tawheed is the idea of singling out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above and beyond all these other things that people might worship, the question is, what are we doing? What are we devoted ourselves to in our life? And I'll end with one last kind of statement, I guess. There's a book that was written in the late 70s called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And there was a question that was asked in that book about the meaning of life, the universe, and everything. And the answer was given through a supercomputer, and it was 42. Now, the writer is an atheist, and he deliberately was writing this to be funny. And he was highlighting that life is essentially meaningless, and that was one of the central themes. Or at least that the meanings we give are just sort of absurd and silly. But Islamically, we do actually have the answer to this question of what is the meaning of life, and it's not 42. The answer is 51, 56. That is the Surah 51, Surah al-Dhariyat, and the Ayah 56, which was the focus of this video. I hope, inshallah, that this video was of benefit. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.